to you by bookmakers.com.
Hello, good evening, and welcome to the LFC Daytrippers. It's Gav, it's Pete, and it's Dicko. It's winners and losers. I'm surprised Dicko showed up because the Ev looks like they might stay up, so I don't know what's going on here. Anything could happen in the next hour. But as you know, it's winners, it's losers. We didn't do a poll this week because the lads were determined to pick their winners and losers. They're not listening to you pricks on Twitter. They want to just literally pick their own winners and losers, and that's the end of it. Show was brought to you by bookmakers.com. Check them out for all your comparisons, your stats, all your articles, everything on sport. If you gamble, do so responsibly, and you can do there at bookmakers.com. All the odds, all the sports from all the bookmakers. Now, lads, winners and losers, we're into what is the last 2 weeks of the Premier League season. Top four is still in the balance. The title, not so much. We get onto that in a minute. The bottom is just amazing. And we're going to talk about most of it tonight. P, how are you? Oh, Pete's muted.
I'm mute.
Pete's muted. What's P? He's muted himself, it says here.
Nope.
No, me. You're there now.
There you go.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can.
Lovely. No, all good. All good. Really good week. Really interesting. The heat's getting hotter over here. I hear it's not raining as much as it normally does back where you guys are. But now a lot of interesting football going on. A lot of men sorted out from a lot of boys over the weekend, as we see in our beautiful game.
Dicko, how are you? How's my Dicko? Because
good.
Couple of weeks back, it was like these are definitely going down. Then they go and slap Brighton. Then they go and lose to City, but respond to that by sending Erling Haaland like the weirdest looking pound shot boot you've seen, with a plaque just absolutely melted into the side of it, to congratulate him because of he's topped Mo Salah's goals from 6 years ago or so. How are things over there in Mad Dicko world?
Yeah, good. It's obviously going to go over at the weekend, so I'll get a proper take on things. But Dicko's convinced herself that the point that Everton get to keep them up is essentially the point that they took off us earlier in the season. So she's convinced herself of that now.
Okay. Oh Jesus, it's got that bad, has it?
Yeah. She's
yeah.
on the fact they got a point from us earlier in the
she's
season.
blaming the whole season on that point they got against the Reds. Okay, fair enough. But look, winners and losers. We're gonna start with a loser this week. P, believe it's your loser of the week. Shoot.
Arsenal.
Okay.
Not just for the obvious reason, but I suppose we should start with the obvious. You can't. I mean, they've had plenty of, shall we say, dress rehearsal, plenty of time to have a look at what City do, the type of runs they put together. I mean, we've seen them fall apart. I mean, there's an alternate universe, for example, where Arsenal go to Anfield, draw 2-2, and the manager regroups, the senior players in that dressing room regroup and tell each other that is actually a superb point, and that they need to build on that. That many teams have won the league, haven't gotten slapped at Anfield, and build on that. To be honest with you, from the minute, and we talked about it from the moment that Granit Xhaka decided in his wisdom to have a go at Trent and woke up 40-odd thousand screaming Liverpool fans, they've just disappeared into their shells. You know, they've any sign of adversity. I mean, I know they've been conceding goals all season, but you know they've been able to find ways to win, and we can talk about the lack of physicality. They have played fantastic football, but when push comes to the shove, to shove at the business end of the season, they've been found lacking. I watched Newcastle penalty. Watched them against Southampton. Could have lost that game 4-2, 5-2 at home. Do you know what I mean? You cannot put their performance against Brighton at the weekend down to a surprise. Everybody knows what Brighton do. Everybody knows what Brighton are. You know, and I suppose it's easy for us to sit here and say, oh, this is how you stop. That's how you stop. But they look to me like a bunch of frightened kids, just not able to cope. I mean, Ben White, for me, summed them up. He's like a statue facing a player. And, but they were acting as if we hadn't seen him before. You hadn't seen his capabilities before, what he's able to do. For me, they should be, Arteta's experience and stature and coaching ability should be prepared for this. And he hasn't prepared them. They're not prepared. They've been caught cold, and for all they're slagging us off. And to be honest with you, what makes it worse for me is listening to them then try to build false comparisons and build false equivalencies between us and them. That's a sure sign of grasping at straws. Oh, we're just like, we've come up against a great Manchester City team. The only Liverpool side I could loosely compare them to, maybe the 13-14 Liverpool, but we'd still
Right.
Between them falling apart and false equivalencies, loser of the week for me.
Okay, we're getting an awful lot of feedback from somebody. I don't know who it is. I don't know which one it is, right? So I'm going to mute just one of you at a time. There's no sound now, so P, have you muted yourself?
No.
Is it coming off, Dicko? Dicko, you do this all the time.
Am I getting the blame for this now?
I think you might be, yeah.
I don't know. Let me have my say and see how bad the mic is.
Hold on, I mute you and see if that sound is coming out. Just give me a second. Now I've muted him, right? So there's no sound coming out here. So then if we unmute Dicko, all right? Is it gone? Oh, it might be gone. Dicko, talk to us.
Okay.
No, it is off, Dicko. It's 100% off, Dicko.
Is it?
Yeah, people are shouting at us, fix the sound, please. This is awful, blah, 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 blah. We know. We're trying to fix it. Relax. Nay asked the question early on, are you still me pal, Gav? Why wouldn't I be his pal? Do we have a falling out? I can't remember. Nay, let me know why I wouldn't be your pal. And Laszlo asked, does Mad Dicko know she's called Mad Dicko? Of course she does. Yeah, she 100% knows she's called Mad Dicko. We're going to let Dicko speak on Arsenal, and if the sound is appalling, he's going to drop out. He's going to fucking swing the laptop around his head 4 times and come back to us. That's the rule. Dicko, Arsenal, losers of the week.
Yeah, well, they are, because at the end of the day, that kind of loss against Brighton, they couldn't even sort of take it right the way to the end, like we've so many times taken it to the death with City. I mean, to be in that situation they were a few weeks ago, to not even allow it to go down to the last weekend of the season now, like it's. Yeah, I mean, they capitulated essentially. But, in hindsight, you can't be totally surprised, can you? Because essentially they were running, you could see they were running out of steam. I think it was a combination of the inexperience of not being in that position, not really being mentally prepared for being in that position. And the fact that they were using, a fairly sort of restricted number of players, week in, week out, relying on the same players to perform to a really high level. And to be fair, they did for 3/4 of the season. I was at that game at Anfield, and, they kind of, we weren't in great form. We were very up and down at that time. We were there for the taking, really. They went 2-0 up in no time, and we looked completely stunned. The crowd was shocked. The crowd was nervous in anticipation of us being embarrassed on our home patch, and we were let off the hook, really. I know we in some ways got ourselves back into the game, and arguably we should have got 3 points. We missed a penalty And we could easily have won the game in the end, even from being 2-0 down. But I think that set the tone then. Pete references the incident with Xhaka, but basically, you can't go to a wounded animal like we were, big 2-0 up and then throw it away like that. To be a true sort of sign of champions, that they had to come out of Anfield with 3 points that day, and they didn't do it. And from that moment on, it kind of the rot set in really. So it's not a total surprise that City reeled off the wins that they've reeled off. And I've seen something on Twitter there this evening which suggested that Arsenal needed to kind of stay perfect to keep up with that pace. Not really. I mean, I think the other big factor in this when you're up against Manchester City is you can't afford to lose home and away against them. Like that's not, you can't make up that ground on a team like Manchester City. Let them take 6 points off you. It's just not going to happen. They don't drop enough points through the season. You've got to inflict wounds on Manchester City in your direct head-to-head competition with them. So yeah, those two factors, that last stretch was too much for them, and they didn't inflict any damage on Manchester City. It was the absolute reverse. So yeah, they are losers because ultimately those opportunities don't come around too often. Liverpool were on a down year. United are rebuilding under the new manager. We know Chelsea have gone to complete pot. Who knows whether Spurs can rally themselves? So, yeah, it was a great opportunity for them to be in top four, but it was a golden opportunity to win, to steal a Premier League, really.
I'm not going to be too harsh on them. All right. I think they finished 5th or 6th last season. 5th, wasn't it? Spurs nick 4th off them. And I've been very open in my assessment of Arteta. All right, especially last season, I just find them weird, right? I think they've been brilliant this season. I'm going to be honest with you. I wanted them to win it. I said it from so far out. I want them to win it because of who they're up against. You're spot on what you're saying with regards to the amount of players they were using, because you could see it. It was the same 11 every week, and then Trossard comes in and it changes slightly. But when they're changing midfield or defence, it's more like it's enforced rather than we're going to play a Tierney or we're going to Tommy Yasu's being injured. But a lot of it, an absolute lot of it was, just it was the same every week, and it was like they couldn't adapt to it. And this part of the season is huge because you will get players that, are out of form and stuff like that, but he didn't seem to have enough. And people have claimed, we didn't make enough signs. And look, he signs a centre-back in January. He signs Trossard in January. He brings in Jorginho. He makes 3 signings. And Jorginho's being good for them. Arsenal fans have been waxing lyrical about him, particularly away at Newcastle a couple of weeks back. The fella the Polish lad at centre-back, from what I've heard, has been good. Trossard has turned up a big goal for them. So it's not like, what do you want them to do? Like, they're doing so well. Sign 5 or 6 makes no odds. Do you know what I mean? Now they'll probably have to go and sign another 3 on top of that for the Champions League. But this is what you're up against, and I keep going on about it. And do you know what? I'm gutted Arsenal didn't win it. I'm going to be honest with you. I'm gutted Arsenal haven't won it because I just don't want to see that other crowd winning it, right? But it's starting to wake people up, and it's starting to. And I'm not even saying it's that people are starting to appreciate what Liverpool put together over an amount of years ago. They only won 1 title, but this is what you're up against. This is endless funds. This is, bringing, and I'm not going to get too far into it, but you're up against, talk about tipping scales in your balance. It's never in the balance. It's not even close to in the balance. And people think, they're 2 great sides. Liverpool are a brilliant side, right? But City have the resources there. Not only the squad numbers, and people go, they've only 16 fit players. Will you give me a fucking break, right? They've only this, they've only that. They have the resources to not only go and do that, but then just supplement it all the time, throwing it all the time if they have to. You know what I mean? And that's what Arsenal are up against. Before I continue, Brian Jardine put in a £20 super chat, which dropped off my screen. That's for the girls running the marathon, he said, and fair play to him for that. Glenn Parsons says Arsenal fans are the losers, legging it out of the stadium as quick as they could after the team gave them a great season. It was a turning point at Anfield. They go and draw at West Ham the following week. And if not the wheels were falling off, but it felt like the pressure was getting to them. And it's very hard when you've that low turnover of players or that low amount of players available, that when you hit that little bit of buffer to get them up and get them going again, it's always like, oh, bring a fella in and he'll do something. And he didn't seem to have that. Jesus was out for a long time. Nketiah was playing really well. Then Nketiah fell off a cliff or got injured. So I think they've been brilliant this season. The only reason I would agree that they're losers of the week is exactly what Glenn Parsons says there. Arsenal fans were in that ground and they were 2-0 down and the place was empty now, and that is not acceptable. It simply is not acceptable, right? Liverpool fans have stayed on final days when they know the title is gone, and they stay and they salute a team that's given them a brilliant season, right? But the problem I feel with some Arsenal fans, not all, is they've gone from 5th and being shaky as fuck to in a title race and got well above themselves too fast. I'm not saying they won't come back next season and be great again and go for a title. But, like, honestly, like, you had Arsenal fans during the season, and I posted 2 things on Twitter, right? And not to have a go at Arsenal, but just to make this point. One, where they're telling you the Premier League is it and the Champions League is a glorified cup competition. So now they're just in a glorified cup competition, right? And then you had, like, Arsenal fans in a title race talking about Liverpool's title win because in March when COVID came, it was a fluke season. Like, they played 29, won 28 and drew 1. You know what I mean? So it's far from a fluke, you know. Jono says, Gav, let's not make Arsenal out to be some plucky underdog. They spent 700 million in 5 years, 300 in the last 2 years, and it's dwarfs what we've ever spent in a 5-year period. Bottlers. Yeah, but Jono, you have to remember, and I completely get your point, like, this isn't about, they've spent a lot of money, they've spent it badly. It's not like they spent brilliantly and they've all the tools that are at their disposal and they've bottled it. They've spent badly and they've sold badly. So, you know what I mean? I know that's a hell of a lot of money, but it's still what you're up against is you spend 700 in the last 5, they'll spend 700, but they know they can go again. Do you know the sort of way? But I think I've left that on screen from Glenn Parsons because I feel that is the biggest part of the loser of the week for Arsenal. The fact that those fans should have stayed in that ground and sang them out of that ground. They know after it that if City win one more game, it's over. And they've lined City up now to win a title with 2 to go and fully concentrate on an FA Cup final and a European Cup final. Because I think they will get, they're in one and they'll get to the other one, in my opinion. So I get Arsenal this week. But I think the biggest thing in law, I wouldn't blame the manager. I think they've given it their absolute all. I wouldn't blame the players, but some fans I would have a go at, because why are you walking out of that ground? This is your 35th league game or whatever it is. Just stay there, and stay there and stay with them. The players know themselves that they're not going to win a title, but at least show them that, you know what, we absolutely appreciate what you've done, and we're here from the first weekend in August or whatever, the 10th, 11th of August, whenever the season starts. We're going to be there for you again. But it must be disheartening for Arsenal players to give all that and talk about their fans all season and then turn around and see that unfolding in front of them with 85 odd minutes gone. So it's one of those.
They did the same. They did the same against Southampton as well. I mean, a lot of them legged it back in when they leveled it up to 3-3. But they were out the gaff at that point. When they were I think they were 3-1 down against Southampton with like 10 minutes to go and the place was emptying out. And obviously they got a couple of goals at the end there. But I mean, the thing that encapsulated it for me was going back to that game at Anfield. I remember sitting there, we were 2-0 down, and it just crossed my mind. I was thinking to myself, geez, look, we're up against Rob Holding here. Rob Holding at centre-back for Arsenal. Surely we've got it in ourselves to come back. And it's things like that. They're the differences between, Arsenal and Manchester City. Arsenal persevering depending on a player in a big spot, that clearly hasn't been good enough for years. Manchester City wouldn't find themselves in that position. they wouldn't be dependent on a player who wasn't good enough 3 years ago. They would have signed reinforcements far better than that player that they would have realised wasn't good enough to win them league titles 3 years ago. And that's a big difference.
Yeah. John says, I'm glad Arsenal didn't win the league. Too much talking for a club who's achieved nothing. Now they're crying how unfair it is. City are so good. Never heard them saying this when it was us. But nobody said it when it was us, because the problem is, and I keep going back to it,
We're a real contender.
yeah, and like I think most non-fans of Arsenal and City will probably look and want. I think most of them would want City to win, because people just go, oh, you know what? Like, it wasn't so much
Doesn't
saving
count.
football this year, but it was kind of, you know, a lot of people think, well, City win it. It doesn't really bother me if Arsenal win it. It's more what bothers you in a day to day. It doesn't bother me either way, you know, if Arsenal win it. Like, I know that fans can be over the top, but every fan base can. But I'd have just ignored that. That would have went completely over my head, to be honest with you. But will people wake up to it? No, they won't wake up to it, because the way it goes, you can't wake up to something when you want to be part of it. And we're seeing that with Manchester United. They all want the Qatar money at Manchester United, right? All this stuff around, no, we don't want Ratcliffe because he's including the Glazers. That's bullshit, because the big talk is the massive money at Qatar, and they all want to be Man City. So they're never going to wake up to these things, right? Because they all want to be Man City. They only wake up when Liverpool show up, because everyone fucking despises Liverpool because of what they are. Do you know, the sort of way? It'd be interesting if United and City went at it next season, who people would want to win. And I'll tell you now, I'd want United to do it over City. And I've no problem saying that. No problem. But if it's Qatar against, you know, City's owners, you know what I mean? Like, what's the point? Let's move on. Let's go to a winner. Who had Forest?
Yeah, that was
you,
me.
Dicko? Go on,
Yeah,
Dicko.
it was. Yeah,
Forest
yeah.
is your winner.
I was keen to get the relegation talk in there,
Course you were.
because it's not over. It's absolutely not over. Yeah, Forest. I mean, look, they're not safe. Obviously, out of the 4 teams left in real danger.
Another point does them probably, Dicko.
Yeah, they've the lowest, but I think they're down to about 20% now as far as the relegation probability is. The reason, apart from the obvious of them having the best chance of survival now, I classify them as winners because they've kind of, look, I know they made a lot of signings and they threw a lot of money at this, but I do like the fact that they've stuck by their manager throughout all of this, and that there's a lot to be said for that. I mean, what we've seen this season in terms of turnover of managers and desperation, obviously, you know, the peak of that in bringing Fat Sam back into the equation, and what's gone on at Leeds in terms of being on their 3rd manager, and what we've seen with, you know, Leicester's, you know, demise now since Brendan Rodgers has gone, and Dean Smith, and that big, I still can't get my head around why there's so many staff and coaches surrounding that fella. No wonder they're in free fall. I can't imagine anyone makes a clear, concise decision in that club at the moment. It just seems like a shambles. But Forest, on the other hand, you know, they've had bad spells. You know, there's been moments in the season where, you know, a lot of clubs would just pull the trigger, you know, irrelevant of the fact that it's the manager who's got them up from the Championship the season before. They just would have gone into kind of panic mode, and they would have said, look, we've got to stay in this division by hook or crook. You know, thanks for your service, but off you go. We'll look to bring in an experienced man to steer us to survival. I mean, even go to Palace. I mean, that was, you know, we said it at the time. It just seemed like a crazy decision to get rid of Vieira. They had such a handy stretch of games coming up, and you know, they bring in Roy Hodgson, and you know, that was a done deal for me almost from day one that they would survive. Obviously, Everton changing manager. You know, everyone's been in panic mode down there, but Forest, you know, they've started playing some decent stuff. You know, they're scoring goals. The fans seem to be 100% on board. You know, they've not been an easy game for anyone this season. So, I think obviously without the survival being completely confirmed, I think what's gone on, the other results, and obviously them getting favourable results the last couple of weeks, just chipping away, getting 3 points here, a point there. They're definitely the winners of the week for me.
It's interesting, Pete, like what Dicko mentions there, because you know Lopetegui at Wolves, they make a call early enough, don't they? And they get him in, and they're safe enough. Now they've gone through bad patches, but you know, has anyone else there kind of taken a job and went, yeah, he's absolutely made a massive difference there, and they look dead and buried and they're fine? Because it's really not like, you could argue that if Everton kept Lampard, right, and Leicester possibly kept Rodgers, they'd be in no worse off position than they are now. So Pete, like, holding on to Cooper, isn't it?
Lampard's
It's worked for them.
Lampard's a stretch because he's completely inept. Completely. I mean, I've never seen a fella who played at such a high level to know he has no idea what's going on in front of him. Absolutely none. Brendan Rodgers lost the dressing room. And that can happen to great managers. The lad's literally just down to did not want to play for whatever. Apparently, he's supposed to be a bit of a character, and so he lost the dressing room. But for me, what Cooper's done is he's got the basics right. And we always say it. I'm always a huge critic of clubs that go for these flash young goalkeepers who have 100,000 saves when they're under pressure, and they stick with them. Forrest had Henderson on loan, I think, for Manchester United, and it was a disaster. On paper, it looked good because he was making all these saves because he had a lot of work to do. What they've done is they've brought in somebody who nobody expected them to get in Keylor Navas. Got him in, somebody who's used to having maybe 82 minutes where he has nothing to do and maybe being busy for 3 and 4 of those minutes. And you can see the difference that he has made. You're looking at someone who's won the Champions League, has been at World Cups. He is an excellent shot at, and when he's called upon, and he's been called upon a lot, he delivers. They've also, for me, Awoniyi is a trick that we missed. I remember seeing him train, seeing pictures of him train, and hearing of him pulling up trees, obviously in Germany. But it's just sometimes it's sheer presence. Forrest can go back to front very, very quickly and have the confidence that it's not going to come straight back at them. I'm not comparing them to Bolton or Sam Allardyce, but sometimes the shades of that. I mean, you've got a centre back, can't remember, is it Niakiti or something, who can throw the ball probably further than a lot of fellas can kick it. I mean, look at the problems that they caused us at Anfield. That game could have ended up any score. Then they've got what Arsenal don't have, what Liverpool don't have. They've got 90 minutes of energy in the middle of that park. These things are not fluke by accident. They're not fluke. It's a result. Everybody mocked Forest for bringing in 20 new players. But when you bring in 20 players and you've got someone that can keep them all motivated and uses them properly. Look at the way he uses your man Brendan Johnson, for example. He doesn't start them, but he brings him on, and he looks to me lethal. And the temptation would
I really
be,
like him, by the way.
why doesn't he start? Why doesn't he? I'll tell you why he doesn't start. Because I want him running at you when you're knackered. I seen him run for 20 minutes at 38-year-old Thiago, the Chelsea centre-back. And you could see that he just didn't want him to be anywhere. Was it? I think it's Thiago. Thiago Silva didn't want him anywhere near him. I mean, your man Cooper knows what he's doing. He does the things that fellas who watch football and go, why don't they do this? Why don't they try that? He does those things. He doesn't seem to me to be the sort of fella that, kind of says, well, I've signed these 6 and 7 lads and I need to. He uses what he needs to use, from experienced goalkeeper to a brick wall of a centre forward to 3 absolute runners in midfield. And he's got, what's the fella that he has up out in the wide position? I think he started up. Is it mate? No, I can't remember. He scored against us at Anfield as well.
Gibbs White.
He's a
Gibbs White from Wolves, yeah.
You need somebody coming from wide and deep positions, nicking your goals when things aren't going. And he's the perfect fella to picks up all those pieces. That fella that throws the ball nearly 70 yards, and the big centre forward getting on the end. He's the one picking up the bits and bits. It is no accident. Nottingham Forest are effective you just don't associate them with that type of effect, but they're very, very effective. They are not going down by any stretch, obviously. For me, Dicko's right. I would have said that Cooper is the winner. Because it looked like a mess 6 months ago. What's he signing all these lads for? And now all of a sudden you can see what he's doing.
Yeah, I had to read this in because I can't talk about Steve Cooper without his facial expressions. You said Steve Cooper always looks like he's caught his missus with his best mate. I always look at Steve Cooper and I think to myself, he looks just in sheer disbelief all the time. All the time. Like when it pans him, it's like he's looking going, what the fuck is... Like, when someone just doesn't know what's going on, but he clearly does know what's going on. I think the thing with Steve Cooper is, I think a lot of them signs have come from above, right? Now, if Steve Cooper, like, I'm not saying he doesn't have any say, but 20 plus players is just insane, right? And I can't remember a team that's probably signed that amount of players coming up, one, or anyone that's ever signed close to that and staying up, because it always seems to just go, all over the shop. But the thing is, like, if Steve Cooper was wandering around Nottingham last August or June, July, August and going, listen, I want him and I want him and I want him and I want him, and they were going, right, this fella's a bit mad, but come on, we go with it. And it was going badly and they were in the bottom, I think he'd have been sacked. But I think what's happened is I think a lot of these players have landed on him. And he's kind of went, yeah, I can work with that. Yeah, come on, I'll work with that. And it's kind of been, those above have had a massive, and I include owners in this, have had a massive say in how they come in. And that can go terribly wrong. Like, do you remember your man at Leeds, was it Chiellini? Was that his name? Or Chiellini? It was an absolute lunatic. And they've stuck with him because I think they've stuck with him and went going, hold on, if we sack him, kind of, a lot of this was their idea as well. Do you know the sort of way? So do we sack ourselves? But they've stuck with him. And if, no, not to say if they had been caught adrift where they were 8 points off safety, they might have done something. But Forest have come up, they've thrown a lot of players at it, but I think they've also adapted really well in the last month or two, where you're like, I never heard of this fella throwing the ball until he started doing it at Anfield. And I want the guy that used to play with Liverpool, he plays up front for them. I can't say his name, right? But he wasn't, I didn't know it was him throughout the season. But all of a sudden it was like, right, big fella up front, get fellas running off him, let's get back to basics. We got to throw in anywhere. This fella's going to launch it. The only problem with that fella was he's only played about 10 games this season, right? And they've just adapted better. They've just adapted better. They've got, I think, they get a point away. No, I think they might lose to Brentford, but they were ahead. They get a point at Chelsea. They win at home against Southampton. And they've just picked up enough. While everyone else has been scrambling around going, this manager, that manager, they've just kind of went, we just slide in here and just kind of say nothing. Do you know what I mean? It's like trying to get by the bouncer when you're 17 and you shouldn't be in the place. But you just kind of say fucking nothing and we get out of here. And I think they're a point away from safety. Because if they get to 35, I think Leeds currently sit on 31. Leeds aren't taking 4 from the last two to go, or 5 from the last two to go beyond Forest. I just don't think they are. And fair play to them. It'll be interesting though, won't it, in the summer when it comes around? Like, who else does he sign? Like, all these players he just brought in for a season, they stay up because he just starts signing another load of them, or did they go, right, stayed up?
They should consolidate. I mean, this is the thing. Like, it was almost to the detriment that they signed so many players, because it was like you were struggling to find your best team week in, week out. They've got to that point now. I think they learned a lot this season. I think the best thing they can do is not go mad in the summer and just look to use this as a springboard with the current squad.
Ashley Elth is spot on. He looks like he constantly wonders, how did I get here? That's exactly how he wonders. He looks like a guy that gets off a bus at the wrong stop and goes, what the fuck is going on? That's exactly what it is, by the way. A one-knee is, Thor says a one-knee is how you say it. I always say a one-knee, or I don't know. I just look at all the letters and try say something. But no, fair play to Forest. It looks like they will stay up. They've look, the results over the last couple of weeks has probably kept them safe. I think they might have Arsenal. They've 2 games left, haven't they? They've Arsenal and someone else. But you never know where Arsenal turn up at the weekend. But I think if Forest just sit there on 34, they'll be all right anyway. You know what I mean? Because Leeds, who's below them? Leicester and Leeds and Everton.
Leeds,
and,
Leicester, Everton.
Yeah, Wolves. Like 3 of them aren't going to pass them out. Simple as that. Do you know what I mean?
Arsenal at home, Palace away on the last day.
Yeah, so there you go. Leeds have West Ham away, Spurs at home, and Everton have Wolves away, Bournemouth at home. Let's move on though to is it no, it's Dicko. We're staying with Dicko, aren't we? Go on, Dicko.
Yeah. Leicester. I mean,
You are losing.
big losers. I mean, look, I know they were up against a steam train in Liverpool last night. Let's not forget we're probably the informed side. Well, maybe with the exception of City, but the last few weeks have amazed me. You know, the performance at Fulham
was appalling.
It was just shocking, and you know there was elements of that last night. Now look, they offered a bit of resistance the first 20 minutes or so, but basically whenever they concede the first goal, it seems this season there's no response, there's no fight, there's no, you know, there's no collective kind of trying to salvage anything. You know, the other bit that's really surprised me the last couple of weeks, although I wouldn't confess to know too much about their fan base, but the fans have completely turned on the team. You know, when they go a goal or two down, the fans are on the backs. You know, they were booing Everton style at half time last night. 2-0, the game wasn't gone. But there just seems to be, between the fans and the players, there just seems to be this kind of almost acceptance that this is happening right in front of their eyes, and they just don't seem capable of changing, you know, the course of where they're going right now, which is straight down into the Championship. You know, the manager seems clueless. There just seems to be, you know, players that are coming off the bench that you think might make an impact are making zero impact when they come on. You know, the players that have been the cornerstone for them over the last few years, you know, your Maddisons, Tielemans, even Vardy to an extent. I mean, they just don't seem interested. You know, and you know, you see a lot of people say it, but it's true. You know, Tielemans and Maddison are playing like they know that they're still going to play in the Premiership next season. It's just not going to be with Leicester City. You know what I mean? It's there's a whiff of that about these players feel like they're going to stay in the Premier League. So they don't seem to care to the degree that you would see from a Forest or even an Everton or even a Southampton. To be honest with you, I've seen a lot more fight out to Southampton over the last few weeks.
In fairness, Ward-Prowse comes out after Southampton defeat the other day when their relegation is confirmed and says he's seen the standard slip at Southampton over the last 12. I think he might have said 12 to 24 months. So he wasn't. It's not that he wanted it to happen, but he was like, we could, not that he could see it coming, but you know, it was always in the back of their mind, and that kind of talk grew and grew. Obviously, with the position in the league, but the standards that are set just weren't there for Southampton either, and he's being honest because he'll be playing in the Premier League next season as well.
Yeah, and they just, you know, it's the too good to go down thing. I think is almost been the players' mentality. I don't think they believed up until very recently that they were in any real danger of going down. You know, they always would. You know, they climbed out for a few weeks at the bottom three, slipped back in there. They're going to run out of games. They're just not going to be able to get themselves and galvanise themselves, I don't think, to get out of this mess. I think it's a sort of a done deal, really, that they're going to go down, which is shocking, really. You know,
it's a shocking, Dicko. I'll stay with you because Sam Tandy says, right? Let me read 2 comments to you. Sam Tandy says, I think just too many Leicester players' heads have been torn during the season, waiting for their next move. Started from Rodgers losing the dressing room, in my opinion, then spoiled from there. Kev O'Sullivan says a group of individuals had Jack from the Talking Bollocks podcast, who's a Leicester fan. He had him on last week and he said the rot there is really, really deep. Right? So is it a surprise, Dicko? Because like when Leicester were, I think Leicester might have had 1 point after 7 games or something this season. It was ridiculous. Or maybe it's another season I'm thinking of. But they were rooted. Right, and then they got on a run and they got out and you kind of went, Leicester will finish 10th, 11th, 12th. And then it just all set back in again because they go, I look at that team and I look at Vardy, right? I look at even Maddison, Tielemans, just players there when I look at them.
Harvey Barnes.
But when I look at them players, I actually think to myself, there is massive issues in that dressing room for me, Dicko. So I don't think it's a massive surprise. And I think they're gone because I think the last two is
Newcastle.
I think they play Newcastle away.
Yeah,
someone else. I don't know, but I think they're gone. Like, so you are you actually surprised by this? Because I'm not.
I am solely because it means they've allowed a team like Everton or Leeds, obviously Forest, Bournemouth, teams like this which they should be finishing above based on the quality of the players that they've got in the squad. And this all comes down to mentality and abandoning ship essentially. That's what this all comes down to, So that's why it's a surprise to me because that squad is more than capable of a mid-table finish if they had the right attitude, the right manager, the right collectiveness.
I get that. Right. Nay says, sorry, they're away to Newcastle, West Ham at home the last game. They'll need to beat West Ham on the last day, and West Ham could be in a Europa Conference final.
And they'll absolutely be praying for them to
be
in that
they'll be praying to that 3 points to keep them up, right? But, Dicko, you're talking about that, right? But Alan Smith, I think it was Alan Smith who was on Sky last night. It was him on the commentary last night. And he turned around after James Maddison went for the far post in the second half. Alisson touched it around. He said, it's in there for Leicester. This was his actual words, right? He's in, I might be paraphrasing a touch. He said, it's in there for Leicester. They have the talent and the ability given half the chance. I nearly fell out my fucking chair. We're 36 points in. We're 36 points, but we're 36 points in. They've 30 fucking points. And you're telling them given half a chance. Like, what is going on here?
But I think there's almost that attitude with the players. They were playing like a team who had 10 more points in the bag, and they don't seem to have taken the situation overly kind of seriously. In terms of the level of fight that they've had, that they should have been displaying, and they haven't been displaying. I mean, there's a fair comment there from James Milne in the comments. The main problem stems from the goalkeeper. Obviously, Kasper Schmeichel was a big part of what they were, their identity and.
But rumored to be a major problem within the dressing room as well.
Yeah, but when he went, obviously purely from a footballing point of view, what they brought in to replace him just simply wasn't good enough. The back four completely has been leaking goals left, right, and centre. And although they've got capable options up front, they're up against it every week, conceding the number of goals that they've been conceding.
Barry Devaney says Paul Merson tipped Leicester to beat us. I knew we'd win after that. Well, yeah, it's a fairly solid fucking ground to start on, to be honest with you. It's Barry. P. Leicester. Away to Newcastle, home to
West Ham.
Home to West Ham. Dicko's losers of the week. Where do you sit with them?
Absolutely. I mean, listen, James Milne took the words right out of my mouth. It goes back to the basics. It's like we spoke about.
Not the meatloaf there. Fair play to you.
You cannot replace a goalkeeper of Kasper Schmeichel standing, a champion, with, I don't know, some guy called Everson, who at one stage was 40 yards outside his box and I didn't know what he was doing. I mean, the back four, that phase fella is an absolute liability. I've never seen that like him. People talk about, I often laugh at the comment, I take this out. There's not one Leicester player I take. Harvey Barnes is a fat winger who had 6 good months. James Maddison takes the ball and runs into players. Just runs into them. I mean, he's not interested in the option left and right. He's not interested in seeing if Jamie Vardy has another 10-yard sprint in him. Not interested. All he did for 90 minutes was take the ball and run into Liverpool players and make faces. Oh, and he tried to start a fight with Luis Diaz, who didn't have a great game, even a good game in my view. Indeed, he looks like, he's probably carrying an extra 5 or 6 pounds. The problem as well with Leicester you're looking at Jamie Vardy is 35 years of age. He's not 2015 Jamie Vardy anymore. And plus they had, N'Golo Kante in there when they were absolutely buzzing, who's like 3 players. So it's difficult. I look at Tielemans. Tielemans is a nice, ornament of a player. He has 2 nice feet, but he doesn't seem to be able to run. He looks to me like he's a 9-stone player, but he runs like a 40-year-old. There's no energy in there. I'll put it to you this way: when you're talking in terms of, God, Leicester miss Harry Maguire, you're in trouble, because they do miss Harry Maguire. I mean, this is how bad they are and how lacking character they are. They brought in, what's his name, the Northern Ireland international at 35 after being out from Johnny Evans. They brought Johnny Evans in last night, who has no business on a football pitch. He's no more fit than, I know it's not his fault. He's the closest thing to decent class that they have, but he's not fit. At one stage, he tried to. This is how out of shape he is. He tried to run the ball across his own 6-yard line and nearly lost one of it. I mean, he's no business on a football pitch. So yeah, he's the closest thing to composure that they have. So they've no choice. As long as he can stand on 2 legs, he had to play. Leicester City are gone. They're not only gone, they're gone. It's just a question of whether Everton or Leeds go with them. For me, Leeds have momentum. I know they're not winning games, but they're performing in the games. They have momentum. Leicester, I mean, it's you know what it is.
I'm not laughing at you, by the way. Sorry.
No, but somebody said last night that Leicester, I think it was you, somebody said that Leicester players are playing like a team, like they have 10 more points. No, the teams that they're probably agreed to sign for have 10 or 15 more points. And nothing is more obvious. Obviously, Harvey Barnes and all those lads have things sorted. But I'd be looking at those players. I mean, that's why guys like Graham Souness don't manage anymore. Because Graham Souness, people like that, would agree to sign you and then look at you performing last night and go, cancel that deal. I don't want that fat winger at my club. He doesn't want to do anything for the club he's at. What if I'm in trouble and I need a bit of character? There's just nothing there. There's nothing there.
Well, on continuing the subject of what people look like when their faces, Brian says, I forgot who said it, but someone once said Merson permanently looks like he's just spent the previous night in a haunted house. That's amazing, that show, Brian. Look, in fairness, Leicester and Jack, who does be on air show on a Friday night quite regularly, has spoken and spoke, I think, last summer, in particular about the lack of movement transfer-wise for Leicester because of the players. I think they had a lot of players on big contracts that they couldn't get out of the club. They couldn't get them out in order to bring more in. And, you know, we kind of see that a little bit with Liverpool where you go, he's on a contract. You can't just keep bringing in players. And it hamstrung them massively. But when I looked through that Leicester side, like Rodgers shouldn't have been there at the start of the season, right? End the fucking story. Shouldn't have been there, right? I actually wanted them relegated. As soon as James Maddison fell to the ground last night after Konate never touched them, I immediately wanted them relegated, right? Because I went, no, that's enough of that. But you look, Vardy's been out of favour for most of the season. I think injuries as well. Daka hasn't pulled up any trades, but I think Daka will end up still in the Premier League as well.
Headless chicken, yes. A headless chicken.
I understand that, but you see, he's a headless chicken in a team that looks like they've no ideas. They just look like a team that they'll throw a load of players in there. You know, I'll throw Johnny Evans in. He played well for us there a while ago. Throw him in. Indeed, you know, Barnes. Like, Harvey Barnes to me was a fella that he got it and he ran at you. Right? None of that. Gets it, turns inside and passes it. Doesn't really do an awful lot. Vardy should be the player where you put him on for 20 at the end if you're winning or losing. He might catch it on the break or he might grab a goal. He shouldn't be, like, he's brilliant for Leicester, don't get me wrong. But just the whole setup of that club, to me, the decisions they've made both last summer, throughout this season, January, keeping Rodgers there that long, even if they persisted with him from last season, just completely wrong. And then there's the fans, right? And look, I say it all the time. If Everton went down, my Jays is the laugh you'd have, right? But honestly, right, Leicester City fans are the biggest shower of pricks I have come across in a long, long time, right? A long, long time. In both cases here last night for me, right? They love nothing more than to carry on the way they've carried on. And this is going back to a League Cup thing last season. Do you remember when Jota scores the winning penalty, right? Does that, right? Where you shouldn't really give them airtime because they're just belligerent pricks, right? But the way they react to their own side last night was just madness to me, right? I understand it, but listen, if I'm a player in a relegation battle, right? I know we haven't played well this season, but if you're not going to support, don't fucking show up, right? You're by all means at the end of the game go, that's a load of bollocks, but support throughout the game, and they weren't. They were outlaying their own fucking team when they were passing it around at 3-0. They were singing that they were going down. They were singing about having the ball and losing the ball. Like, what age are these fucking people? Do you know what I mean? And you're kind of looking at them, and listen, I'm used to all this fucking feed the scousers and all this sort of bullshit that goes on. What can you do, right? It just goes on and on and on, right? They're just non-educated people, in my opinion, right? But, and look, there's times we've all gone to football matches and your team is shy and you're really fucking frustrated, but you keep, come on, you might get something. But this last night was just appalling, right? And they deserve to go down. And if they go down, like we talk about Everton going down and, blah, 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 where will it leave them? Leicester could be in serious trouble to go down, right? Because I don't know how many of them players are on, release contracts, if they're relegation clauses. There's talk of them extending the King Power. Why, I don't know. But why do you need more Leicester fans, right? And then you have this training ground they've built a whole lot. Honestly, I could see it a mile off this season. And it all starts from not telling Brendan Rodgers to fuck off last summer, right? It then continues on with players that are probably past their best and are probably causing fucking trouble, right? Cut the cord, tell them to fuck off. They don't do that. And they continue to, and they've ended up now where they bring in, what's his name? John Terry arrives from
Smith.
Shakespeare, arrives from
Dean Smith, Shakespeare, yeah.
But they've stamped nothing of themselves onto this team. Nothing.
No.
Like Sam Allardyce has gone out and he know Leeds don't want the ball. No interest in the fucking ball. We'll just give you the ball and we'll try rob something. Leicester have nothing. Where you could go,
No
Dean
fresh
Smith has
ideas.
looked that in.
No.
John Terry is there. He's a fucking brilliant, one of the best defenders in the Premier League I've ever seen. We're going to be this defensively. And I know people say, well, he hasn't had much time. But they're all professional footballers. It takes you fucking a couple of hours in the training ground to go, this is the way we're going to set up. You don't fucking go up there. You don't move from there. That ball drops there. I don't want you messing kicker away. None of that has come from Leicester. They will go down, in my opinion. And you know what? Fuck them. I'm delighted they are. That's the way I see it.
Yeah, let them sing their songs. I mean, listen, the penalty they got against Everton, for James Maddison to do what he did with that penalty, sums him and them up. Really. You're in that situation 3 games to go for. You put your foot through that fucking ball and make sure if he's saving it, you're breaking his fingers. But no, this fancy Dan nonsense in that situation, I don't count it. Don't get it. You're right, Gav.
Glenn says they couldn't afford to sack Rodgers. They could do it because of the clause he had in his contract. Couldn't make top 8 so they could get rid of him cheap. Right, come here. All this couldn't afford to him, right? Give him the fucking 20 million quid and tell him to fuck off. Because now they're going to be down 100 million quid at the end of the season. And for the season after that. And I never get that couldn't thing. Unless Brendan Rodgers has done a deal where, it's like 50 million quid to get rid of me, which I don't think it would be, because if Leicester signed that, like, you know what I mean? Like, what the fuck, yeah. Owners suffer financially due to COVID in their business, says Mohammed. Rogers had some clause where he had to wait on league position to fire him and pay him less severance. I get that, but as a football club, if you want to stay up, you weigh it up 20 to him and go down, right? Or save 10 and go down, or pay the fucking 20 and possibly stay up. It's a no-brainer.
They've had loads of time, though. I mean, like they've had the point at which Rodgers goes, they've had so much opportunity to stay up. I mean, they're only going to go down by a point or two. I mean, if they beat Everton in that game, they probably stay up. Like the annoying part of this for me is that they, a team that you wouldn't have expected to go down is essentially going to go down in the place of Everton. That's the annoying part of it.
Yeah, but the Everton fun only starts then at the end of the season.
Yeah.
I would have liked to have seen it just happen now and not wonder could they wrangle out of the thing.
If the Premier League were working alongside Everton, as Everton said, to sort out the financial situation at Everton, which was well above the 105 million you're allowed to lose after 3 years, if they were working alongside Everton and then still had to charge them with something, Everton are in a serious amount of fucking trouble, right? End of story. Cause Usmanov is not there, they've no money. Simple as that. They're in huge trouble. And honestly, I wouldn't be surprised between now and the whatever it is, the 27th of May when the league ends, or the 28th of May. I wouldn't be surprised if one or two clubs down there don't start banging a little drum with regards to Everton and what's going on with the Premier League and what's happening with regards to that charge against them. Because I'm of the opinion the Premier League will probably hope Everton go down so they can wash their hands of it and they're in the Football League. Whereas if they stay up, they're going to have to act on it, because clubs, A, that have went down, B, that are coming up, and C, that are in the Premier League and probably looking on, we could be in trouble next season, will want to know what's going on there, and will want Everton to either have a transfer ban or a points deduction, and either or kills them. Absolutely cripples them. But
no one is signing for them anyway. I mean, I seen one of their forums.
But people will, because what happens is it's a bit like Leicester. Third round, do you want 50 grand a week? Yeah, give you 70. Perfect. Give us 70 grand a week, because I know I'll play here for a year, probably go down, and I'll get a fucking another move, and I'll have to be paid off the move as well. Like they will sign for them, but honestly, there will be people banging a drum about everything. I would say within the next. I'd be surprised if it doesn't happen in the next week. Especially after this weekend's results. And Leeds will be the one that'll start it, without a shadow of a doubt. You can ring Sean Dyche and ask him how it's done, because he started the last season. So, let's get on to winner of the week. Pete's winner, isn't it?
Yep.
Pete, your winner of the week. Go.
Big winner.
Trent Alexander Arnold.
Now we're getting that feedback again off Dicko, I think. So it's gone now. Go on. Trent Alexander Arnold.
I mean, listen, this fella spends more time being questioned, prodded, poked at. He's not this, he's not that, he's not quite this, he's not quite that. The last 6 or 7 weeks, I swear to God, he looks like Ruud Hullet. He looks, not just physically, he's playing like him. That new position that basically he's co-authored with Jurgen Klopp, with a little help from what happened at Manchester City as well, to be fair. Again, I criticised James Maddison 5 minutes ago for saying he just runs into players. I cannot remember the last time I seen an English player that wasn't a Spanish player called Xavi and Iniesta just do the right thing with the football every time he got the chance. You can see the remit. If the killer pass is on, it's on. He plays a little dinker around the corner to Gakpo in the first half. From about 6 yards away from him, he gets it up and down. It's like one of your golf shots, Gav, one of your rescue wedges, to be honest, that I've seen on Bang Average Golf. He tries that. Gakpo should have a better first touch, should bury it. Is dropping in simple passes, the 5-yard stuff, the 25-yard stuff, the shooting. Forget about the free kick. I mean, he looks like, sometimes I think the press and people like Gary Neville or Martin Tyler, whoever, need to put blinkers on, and forget, if you couldn't see his face, you think, who was that fella that Liverpool have signed for 150 million quid? Obviously, because he's an absolute world-class midfield player. goals, assists. But somebody made a shout in the group, the viewers group a few minutes ago, that player of the month by far. Listen, I know you've got to look at De Bruyne, you've got to look at what's going on the very top of the table. But I don't think anybody is better than him right now. I don't think anybody in the country is better than him right now. As far as midfielders are concerned, there's nobody to touch him. He was absolutely. There was only. I mean, we probably had 4 or 5 very good performances, but he was and has been by far and away, I think, the best player in the league, certainly for 4 or 5 weeks. So he's my winner this week.
Dicko, Trent, new position, and I use that in inverted commas. Where do you sit with it at the moment? You're muted.
You're muted, Dicko.
He's muted. This is a bleeding great show, this, isn't it? Lads muting themselves, unmuting themselves. You haven't got a clue what's going on. No, Dicko's still muted. No, there, he's gone now. Jesus Christ, I'm going to have to get Dicko onto some sort of course, honest to God. We'll get Dicko back in a minute. The thing for me is, and I've said it before, and I'll stick with it. I think they've definitely seen something from City and went, we could do that. And that happens all the time. Teams see other stuff going on and go, yeah, well, let's try that. I remember even going back to the Bolton days when Sam Allardyce used to have Kevin Davis stand on the 6-yard line for free kicks, then running back out and stuff, and loads of teams tried it then. I think it was done to protect them. I think a massive part of it was to protect them, because no matter what he done, if Liverpool conceded a goal, they looked for Trent. And they looked to have a go at him. And I think it was done to protect them. But I also do think it was done to shake up midfield a bit. I think the midfield was caught in that kind of halfway house. Do we go? Do we not? If we go, are we going to get hurt going the other way? Because we've seen it so many times this season. And I think by bringing him in there, opposition teams are going, that right back's in midfield. Did we get the winger to go in with him? We're outnumbering teams in midfield, but at the same time, we're still defending well, and we're attacking with numbers. And I really do think it was done to protect them. Having said that, on the ball in the positions he's getting it, on the ball in the positions that he's actually getting it, he's exceptional. Like, his weight of pass, his eye for a pass. And I've noticed that over the last couple of weeks, because me and Shawnee were talking about it, saying, he's neat and tidy. Is he looking around him enough? And I've noticed over the last couple of games, his head's on a swivel. His head is now on a swivel. He's looking everywhere. And he's not just kind of going, I'm looking in this direction. That'll be a good pass. I'll hit it. He's actually taking mental notes all the time. So what pass he would usually hit, he's actually, I'll take another touch, or I might just change my body shape, because I know there's someone else in there that if I can get it out of my feet here, I can actually free him, and it's a much better attacking thing for us. Don't get me wrong, there's still mistakes. He makes a mistake early yesterday, that Vardy gets in, Alisson has to make a save. But overall, I think he's being absolutely brilliant. I think just the confidence in him, he looks to have a freedom to him. The rest of the team look to have a freedom because of it. And you know what? People have asked me, and I've kind of thought about this a lot, do you sign another right back? I'm against that. I think if you sign a right back and put Trent into midfield, Trent then becomes a midfielder. And with Trent being a midfielder, you're not outnumbering teams. The idea behind him is that he's playing this hybrid role, where when we have it, he's wandering and he's getting on the ball. When we don't, watch him. Watch him when we lose the ball. He's immediately falling back into that position. Right? His first thought when we lose the ball in the middle of the park isn't to go chasing after it. His first thought is, I might have a nip at it, but I'm going to just start falling back into a right-hand position. And Konaté's doing a massive job for him. But the biggest thing to come out of it is Curtis Jones. And the reason being is because Curtis Jones, or another that was in that position in midfield earlier on in the season, would not be in the positions he's scoring goals in, because what would happen is if they went in there and the ball came out, we were fucking screwed because we hadn't got the legs to cover. But now Curtis Jones is going, hold on a minute, I can actually make runs in there because I know, right, Henderson will be behind, Fabinho behind. Now Trent's behind and we're just gone to 3 at the back. So there's still 3 lads in midfield even when I go. And I think he has like benefited so much. And it could have been another player, it could have been an Elliott if he was playing. I think that's been the big thing. Not only his range of passing, but his presence is allowing others to go and affect games and hurt teams. And that's where I think the biggest thing has been. I still wouldn't sign a right back and go, Trent's a midfielder now. I just like what we're doing, and it's so hard to stop. Teams will look at it now and they go, next season we're not going to let that happen. It's so hard to fucking stop. You have to be massively brave to do it, and you have to be, even braver to try to stop it. Dicko, you're back. Trent.
I am back, yeah.
Talk to me.
No, his form's been brilliant the last sort of 6 weeks or so. I mean, since he's kind of had that change in his position, he just seems like a completely different player. I think it's probably something, mental's gone on as well behind the scenes. I mean, he seemed really down in the dumps. His body language is all wrong. I think, the mistakes and the singling out he was getting, I think obviously got through to him, whether it be via social media or just general chat and whatnot. He seems to have blocked a lot of that out mentally now and seems to be a lot more sort of focused and switched on. It was great to see him last night, score that goal, be able to celebrate it. In a touch of arrogance there and whatnot, but that's fine when you're playing brilliantly like he is at the moment. He did it earlier in the season and it rubbed a lot of people up the wrong way.
Bournemouth at home.
Yeah, I remember Shawnee getting really wound up about it because he'd had a couple of stinkers and he scores the goal against Bournemouth. We score 9 goals, and it didn't sit right with some people. But that last night, I was made up for him when he smashed that in because it was all players love to score goals, especially when they're not types of players who are meant to score on a regular basis. So it was good to see him be able to be rewarded for his performances. And you're right. I mean, it does coincide with our general midfield performances and availability. Our team selection being able to be kind of, tweaked here and there week to week compared to earlier in the season when we were so limited on options, limited with legs. It was impacting everything going forward, impacting everything in terms of being overexposed at the back. Trent looking back, bang average, Van Dijk looking worse than average. It exposed a lot of cracks, that midfield. So, yeah, the combination of the two things, and Trent does all his damage going forward. Look, he's not perfect. There was quite a few instances last night where he got towards the edge of the penalty area and he just seemed a bit indecisive, and there was a weak pass at the end of it, and there was a turnover as a result. But look, he's getting himself in positions that can hurt the opposition. His passing seems to have improved, and yeah, he's a big reason why we've gone on this big stretch of wins, why we've strung all these wins together now, and potentially it's part of the reason why we've still given ourselves an outside chance. He's been our best player, he's been our most improved player over that stretch, and hopefully he carries it on through now till the end of the season, and he can come back refreshed next season, hit the ground running, because an effective and a top of his game, Trent Alexander Arnold is key to our success.
He is, and I think I just think the shake up overall of Liverpool just finding something different to do. Like, we've gone on about it so many shows this season, it always seems to be the same thing. And as soon as Liverpool decide to do something a little bit different, things start to click. Players find the freedom. They find they find an assurance in what they're doing. Like, I was looking at midfielders earlier in the season and forwards missing chances and nearly going, oh fuck, that's us fucked now this game. Or midfielders wanting to go and affect games but afraid to because they get caught going the other way. Centre halves, being exposed to teams running onto them. And I'm not saying the centre-halves overall have been brilliant this season. Kanate probably stands out. But Liverpool were always built on working as a team, protecting each other and not letting each other getting exposed. And that all went away this season, you know. So I think it's been I think it's been big for the player. I think it's been big for others around them as well. I just think it's been, I really do. I think it's been huge just watching Liverpool week on week. We're going to head off in a minute. Can't forget the charity. We had a super chat in earlier for the 12 women that are running the Dublin Marathon in aid of breast cancer research. Like I said, if you can help us out, the link is in the description to donate. If you can't, that's absolutely fine. Share it wherever you can. If you want to help us out for the golf day with sponsoring tee boxes or long drives or nearest the pins or whatever that might be, LFC Daytrippers at gmail.com. Prizes for the raffle, shout at us. Just get on to us and we'll sort something out. I want to give a shout to Steve and Tracy from Crystal and Classics. They are sending us over some lovely crystal pieces for the raffle that night. So fair play to them for that. And they literally sent us an email saying, "Look, been listening since the early days. Love the charity work you do." They're a small business, crystalandclassics.com. But they said, "Look, we'll send something over to you," and that's all we need. Something like that. Send us a few quid. We'll go and buy the prizes. We'll go out and do the work for you if you want. So look, it's a brilliant cause. It's the golf day is closing in, but we're going to keep going with this. This will probably go on till October, November. But the golf day is a huge part of raising a lot of money for it. Yeah, if you can, all the details are in the description. LFCDaytrippers at gmail.com if you want to help us out at all. Dicko, anything else before we go?
Look, there's still hope. There's still hope that Everton go down. I think the funniest clip I seen this week or this weekend was the two Everton fans walking out of the Eurovision song contest.
That can't be real.
Look, I take it as real.
Like, but then again,
look, you think about
isn't it? It's probably real.
If you think about it, if Dicko was at the Eurovision and they started playing Zeg Cars, she would have walked out.
Yeah.
So it does. These things happen. Yeah. These things happen, and watching that video of them saying they should have just stopped at Sonia, it was brilliant.
Pete, anything else before we go?
No, just a big shout out to everyone. Thanks as usual for tuning in and just backing up what you're saying about the charity as well. And don't forget to get some more bang average golf content up as soon as you can, Gav. We're all enjoying it.
Look, I'm in the middle of editing the latest one. I think I have about 6 backed up there that I have to edit. I'm hoping to have this one out tomorrow. If not, it'll be the next day. It is an 18-hole video. It will be about 40 minutes long, so make yourself a cup of tea. But it is a good one. It is a good one. I played a new course last Friday, recorded there for hours, but it was really good. The weather was fantastic, and we probably have 4 or 5 videos coming out on that as well. And if you like golf, even if you don't, just watch me and Neil and the lads playing golf. Go and check it out. We're trying to get more people involved to play. We're trying to get more courses to let us out and play, to bring you more and more different things with regards to the bang average golf. But subscribe to that if you want as well. We're going to leave it there. I think we should. We usually try to do an hour, about an hour and 15 in. But look, it's been a great show. Thanks a million to Pete. Thanks to Dicko. Thanks to everyone in the chat. For all your comments. We should definitely do a show one night where we just talk about people's faces and what they actually look like, because they were absolutely brilliant. Really enjoyed it. Someone else mentioned Bobby Firmino. We are 100% doing a Bobby Firmino podcast before the season is out. Rest of the week, haven't a clue, because there's a load of us won't be here over the weekend. We'll all be in Liverpool for the Villa game. So I don't know what shows are on, who's on them, but I'm sure I'll sort it out by this time tomorrow night. Tomorrow is Wednesday, isn't it? Is it?
It is, yeah.
It is.
Wednesday.
Yeah, tomorrow's Wednesday. I don't think we've had on tomorrow or Thursday. We definitely have something on Friday, but you never know. Anything could happen. But we're going to try to sort this out over the weekend with the Premier League forecast, the full-time Reds, the Fatback Four. Fatback Four will have none of the Fatback Four lads on it because there's no one around this weekend, but we'll try to get a few people together.
And we're all Brighton fans on Thursday night.
We're all Brighton fans. Gav, you need to get over to California and play some of our courses. Yeah, if you pay for it, I'll come over and do it, no problem. I haven't got that. That's a lot of money. But look, that has been winners and losers from the LFC Daytrippers. Thanks for being there, everyone, again. Over now.